Yep. It's 9 o'clock. I'm going to call the Crow Wing County Board of Commissioners regular meeting to order. Please stand for the pledge and a moment of silence.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Since we don't do roll call, we're all here except for Doug?
That is correct, Mr. Chair.
Okay. So open forum, this is the time to address the board on anything that's not on the agenda. Anybody may please come to the front. You have 3 minutes. Okay. Doesn't seem to be anybody coming to the front. The first thing I'd like to do today, though, before we get into review of minutes, is this is, I got it on this note here. April 26th is County Government Appreciation Day. It is a time to commend the commitment and the dedication of the public service excellence of county staff and officials. County employees dedicate their time, their skills, their expertise for the benefit of their neighbors. County workers ensure public safety as well as manage justice and public safety systems. The vital work they do helps promote healthy communities, foster conditions of economic growth, strengthens infrastructure, and improves residents' quality of life. Thank you for choosing to work in county government. And next, I think we have something that, Rob, you're coming up? Yep.
We got a pretty cool item today. I'm holding an award. Once again, it's not an award I won, but I'm holding it for right now anyway. It's kind of a cool segue from County Government Week there. Every year, the Minnesota County Engineers Association accepts nominations for the Project Manager of the Year in the whole state, and it can be for any county-led project. For 2023, Steve Strohschein from our office was nominated, and he won in the Minnesota County Engineers for Project Manager of the Year for his work on the Crosby Roundabout from last year. Steve was kind of a one-man show on that project, from design to buying right-of-way to permitting to PR. Once it got to construction, he was still instrumental, and at that point had a lot of help from our engineering technicians and other staff to deliver that project. Kind of a unique project, which I think you've heard before, on a state highway and a county road and a township road. And we were entrusted to lead that project, and Steve did all the heavy lifting on that. This is actually the second time that he's won the Minnesota County Engineers Project Manager of the Year. He won it about a decade ago, 9 years, for his work on County Road 3 from Cross Lake up to 50 Lakes. So you were generous enough to allow Steve to attend the National Association County Engineers Conference last week. And once you win the Minnesota Award, you go into the National Project Manager of the Year Award competition. And Steve texted me Friday morning and said, "You won't believe this, but he won the National Project Manager of the Year award for that project." So it's a very impressive award. We're pretty excited for him. We just wanted to kind of give it to him in front of you and have a picture with that and recognize him publicly for that work. So
Thank you so much. Congratulations, Steve. A few words from you, Steve.
Just thank you, I guess. This means a lot to me, and I was very proud and very honored to bring this back to Crow Wing County. So thank you for allowing me to go to California to get this and be a part of that conference, and came back with the results this time. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So should
We're going to take a picture.
We're going to get a picture.
Take a picture.
Yep. Scoot in.
There you go. All right, one right here, guys. Tim Bray, can you go that way just this, there we go. Two more. Great, congratulations.
Next on the agenda is review and approve minutes.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and second, all in favor? I guess we don't have to do, huh?
Who's the second? Which one?
Rosemary beat me.
The chair makes-
The chair.
Rosemary, second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Sure nice not to do a roll call.
Oh, Jesus.
Yes, I agree.
Review and approve the agenda.
We have no changes, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, I would like to add on the end, under additional business, as we all know, Dr. Hool has given us a lot of great service to Crow Wing County, but has decided, and I'm kind of jealous that he's retiring, but the county board has decided that we would take applications internally, and that's what we have done. The application period ended yesterday at 5 o'clock. We have 2 applicants to interview. I think the county board has to have a discussion about doing the interviews, when we're going to do the interviews. I think we talked about having the interviews at our personnel committee meeting on May 6th, but actually that's 2 weeks away. I think we should have a special meeting to possibly do those interviews or have that discussion.
Okay, you want to add that on then at 12?
Right at additional business would be
Okay.
great.
Okay. So, looking for...
With that, with the
Yep.
addition to the agenda, I would move to approve the agenda as amended.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Consent agenda.
Motion to approve.
Second. You're going to have to be quick.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Community services.
Maybe this isn't as easy. Yeah, it's all good. Good morning, Chair Lubke and Commissioners. Tammy Lewitt, Crow Wing County Community Services. I'm here today to ask for the board's approval of a board resolution for community services to apply with Region 5 Adult Mental Health Initiative for the Community Impact Grant that Sourcewell puts forward. Sourcewell asks that we do a resolution to establish this request as well as the support that we're asking for. So the resolution before you today says that we would ask for support for seeking funding from Sourcewell for mental health co-response and jail program growth in Region 5+. We were here about a month ago and at Committee of the Whole and talked with you about those 2 programs, our coordinated community response that we are doing out in the community with law enforcement, and then the social workers that we have in our jail that we've had there now for a number of years. You did sign a board resolution to, back in April of 2019, to reduce the number of people with mental illness in jails, and that was approved and signed in April of 2019. And at that time, we did apply for Sourcewell funding, which did really help us launch those social workers in our jail. Our adult mental health initiative does provide some of the support for that, and we utilize some of our county dollars and grants to help support those staff. But this grant would allow us to continue to build and enhance the work that we are doing. If you remember correctly, we added a mental health social worker last year when we lost our medical program, and that position is not funded. So we'd like to potentially look at that, as well as there is a new mandate that we received last year that's unfunded by the state, and that's to, for those with serious persistent mental illness, when they are 30 days from their discharge, we are to, sorry, I got to think through this for a second. There are like 5 areas that they would like us to consider for a reentry plan for those individuals, one of them being a 30-day prescription supply. And so that might be another area that we would be utilizing these dollars for, to assist these individuals with getting the needed resources prior to discharge from the jail. Are there any questions?
Mr. Chairman, I do have a question. You know, being that I was in the legislature, I kind of know how it works. It's always kind of the carrot where the legislature offers a grant or some money, but there's always strings attached. I always think there is. At least that's the way it was in the legislature. So do you foresee accepting this grant from Sourcewell? Are they having any strings attached to that? Anything that they are expecting us to do, or reporting requirements, or anything along that nature that you can think of?
It's similar. So we do have some quarterly reporting requirements during the 1-year grant cycle. But after that, no, I don't. I really think Sourcewell is trying to figure out how to support our region with these mental health needs that we have. And so I think they're looking at how can we do this in a regional way. Some of our counties that are a part of this have not got the co-response with law enforcement established in their counties, and so that is how they're going to move forward with these dollars. We have been fortunate through the ARPA funds that we were able to do that, but we also will be looking to see how we fund that in the future. We have 1 more year of funding. There are some things going on at the state level that we are definitely watching. There's officer-involved care coordination, which is a way that we can claim for the work we're doing out there in the community with law enforcement. There's also been quite a bit of, you've been hearing probably about it around the 1115 waiver, which would allow people in jails to receive, and I'm going to lose the number, but I think it's 90 days before release or 60 days before release, they would be able to get medical assistance benefits prior to being released. That's a federal change, and so the state legislature is asking DHS to make that request of the federal government, and then they also will be doing some pilots over the course of the next year. We hope to be maybe considered for that pilot because we have been doing this work in the jail. So we're going to continue to look at how we can get funding for these programs. I hope that answered your question.
Somewhat.
Yeah.
I think in this instance, it is an instance where we're deciding what it is we want to do, and now we're going about the business of trying to figure out how could we sustain this? What's the funding model going to look like long term? And so we did use ARPA funds for these dollars originally. This would be using Sourcewell funds so that we don't have to use levy funds. And so I think it is a clear levy offset, and so it's good from that perspective. I like the idea of figuring out where are the revenue drawdowns that we might be able to claim, because those are the ongoing revenue streams that are going to help to sustain this work. But I do think about the presentation that they made, especially with the officer involved and embedded officer. You know, I've been doing this for a long time, and I've listened to officers for decades say, we're not social workers. That's what they would say. We're not social workers, but we're being asked to do social work. They've been asking for that help for 30 years, and I don't know why it took us so long to hear it. Now they have that, and they're like, oh my gosh. Thank God. Because what they're dealing with are human maladies, right? Mm-hmm. And they're trained to control the situation and make people safe. They're not trained to help them to tie into resources that are related to the decompression, the incident, what they're doing at the present that got law enforcement's attention in the first place. So I think these are smart moves to get someone else to help us to pay for what we want to do anyway. Usually, I get concerned if it's the other way around too. In this instance, I do not believe that's the case.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I just thought of something else that I think kind of relates to this. When I was gone, I attended, there's what they call the Minnesota Breakfast. And one of the meetings, it was Newt Gingrich was the speaker. The next meeting was current Congressman Finstead from southern Minnesota in the 1st District, which I was able to have a good conversation with, which I think it's important for us to have a relationship not only with our legislative delegation, but people that are passing legislation that has a trickle-down effect on county government. And then I also ran into former Governor Tim Pawlenty, and he saw me and he said, "Coring, what are you doing here?" I said, "Well, I'm eating breakfast." And he says, "Well, give me your card, we'll have lunch." I had lunch. And when we sat down, he's still involved with public policy. The first thing he asked me, he said, "What's the number one issue for county government?" And I said, "Mental health." And he says, "How are we going to solve that?" And I said, this was my answer. I said, "You know what, we might have to look at going back to institutional kind of settings. I don't know if that would ever fly." I said, "It isn't working the way it's working right now." And so it was a great conversation. And I just bring that up because I think we have to be engaged as a county board, not only with our legislative delegation, but even our congressional people, and let them know what's happening here on the ground, because I think other than township, we're the closest to the people. When you're in Washington or you're in St. Paul, sometimes you lose touch with what's going on here locally. So,
Mr. Chair, if I might, I will speak a little bit on, I sit on the board of Sourcewell, and I know that mental health is a high priority for them in our region to assist with some resolution for this problem. My caution to Sourcewell is exactly kind of what you're saying, is that the state government walked away from the responsibility, and their approach at this time is to continually put it on the local units of government, which we can't sustain. That just won't fly. So having Sourcewell as a partner, and Sourcewell is a government unit that has no taxing ability. They get absolutely nothing out of a levy. It's all about cooperative purchasing and the monies that they derive from that, which is interesting because it isn't even from our region. It's from across the country that most of those revenues are received. So it's interesting that they have a high priority for something that the state should be addressing. And to former Governor Pawlenty's point, the question always back from the state is, well, how are you going to solve it? Well, I realize we're all the ones that have to solve it, but it might be going back to those institutions that we had originally, and I think that would be a good approach. However, we're not at that point in time. Right. So I would, if there's no other discussion, I would make the motion to approve the resolutions, support of seeking the funding from Sourcewell for mental health co-response and jail program growth in Region 5+.
Second.
Motion made and seconded by Rosemary. She beat you to it. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tammy.
Now we have county engineer. Oh,
I'm going to stand up here and represent Tim Bray today. So the first thing we would like to ask the board for is to adopt an agreement to enter into an agreement with the Commissioner of Transportation to receive bridge funding for our CASA 43 bridge project. That project has been bid already. Marvin Treader is the contractor for that. And so this would just be the next step in the process to secure the grant funding to build that bridge. I guess I would just note too that Crow Wing County and Cass County are partnering on this project, so it's a 50-50 split. Cass County did the design engineering for it, Crow Wing's going to do the construction engineering, and the remaining amount of money, which is about $500,000 that's not covered by the grant, would be split equally between the counties. Is there any questions on that resolution?
I went up and looked at that, Steve, where it's at, and that's the one that's kind of unique. It's moving from Cass into Crow Wing just by that little, I mean, when you look at it, you go, really? That's where that line is? And that's where it is. And I think it'll take those curves out of there a little bit. I think it'll make a nice project. So I definitely support it. Do I make the motion?
No.
Mr. Chairman, I would move the resolution, the agreement to the State Transportation Fund Local Bridge Replacement Program, grant terms and conditions for, okay?
Motion. We have a second. Mr. Rosemary, second it. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carried.
The second item we have is to ask the county board to finalize the CASA 31 roundabout project. Anderson Brothers was a contractor on that project. The final costs were $1,937,274.37. We had an overrun on that project of 1.4%. 1% was geared towards construction overruns, and the other 0.4% was incentives.
So, Mr. Chair, so Steve, this resolution is doing what? Is it paying the overage or is it just paying the whole thing? I would assume they would have gotten paid almost the whole thing already.
They have been paid 95%, so this will be authorization to make final payment and approve the final contract.
Okay. And then just to remind me, this is right by the new Super One up in Crosby on, is it that's not 210?
Yes, that's correct,
Yeah,
210, yeah.
Okay. Mr. Chair, I would move the request for board action to the final payment request for contract number 23001.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. We're on to 7.3, or order contract 24003.
And the final item we have is to ask the county board to authorize entering into a contract with Anderson Brothers Construction. This is for a contract we recently received bids on. It's for the 3 and 4 roundabout, just north of Merrifield. Anderson Brothers was the low bidder at $2.5 million. The engineering estimate was $3.6 million. So we'd ask the county board to enter into a contract to authorize acceptance of those bids and to enter into a contract with Anderson Brothers.
Mr. Chair, if I might, Steve, can you identify a reason why we would have been so far off in our engineer's estimate?
Yeah, I can talk about that a little bit. So this was a consultant design project, and with that, they're responsible for putting the estimate together as well. And so we offer them information and we assist them with the estimate, but they don't necessarily have to use our numbers. And so they're responsible with coming up with the estimate, submitting it to MnDOT with the plans for approval. And so that's why you see the number being quite a bit higher, and we do see that quite a bit with consultant designs for a couple different reasons. But ultimately, I think our staff anticipated that, and so our conservative budget number for this project was right around $3 million. And so we were anticipating the numbers being a little bit higher from the consultant.
Mr. Chair, I was hoping that there was a movement from providers of your supplies that you need for these projects to reduce costs, in terms of our inflation that's going on, but that's apparently not the.
Yeah, I'd like to stand up here and say that prices are going down, but I don't think that's the case. I think the estimate was high that was provided from the consultant, so.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, another question on this one, if you don't mind. Steve, how many bidders did you have on this? I'm just wondering if it was a very competitive, or if there's a lot of people looking for work and it's very competitive, why it's down?
It was very competitive. We had 15 plan holders on the project, and
Pardon me?
we had 15 plan holders, so that's like subcontractors, prime contractors. So 15 people downloaded our plan to review it and look at it to see if they wanted to bid on it.
Right.
We had 3 contractors bid on it, but we also had 4 more that had incomplete bids who got partway through the process and for whatever reason decided not to finish the paperwork. So it's quite a bit. We typically see anywhere from 4 to 5 bidders on these projects, and I think we would have been there if a couple other folks would have had their paperwork turned in correctly.
Well, I'd like to make the motion to award the bid to Anderson Brothers.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
And congratulations again. Facilities Manager, I think that is you, John, up. A re-roof. We're going to go up and do some re-roofing, huh?
We got to keep a roof over our star program manager's head, right? Good morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. This morning, I'd like to talk about the re-roof project for our highway facility. But before I do that, if I could just have a couple minutes to talk about how we get here to this point. We have a lot of technicians who are specialized in certain things, and one of them is roofing. And so he's been watching this roof for years. He does spring inspections, takes photos, records his labor hours, the cost of repairs. And that's being done across the campus for boilers, chillers, roofs, all elevators, all our other infrastructure, right? So we have a group of very talented people who are recording that data of their repairs and their cost and their observations, and we can report that out so that I can make good decisions and efficient decisions. This roof is past its warranty. We're pushing its life. I go back and I look at the history and say, we've spent this much on this roof, we've got this many labor's hours into it, it's time to make a move here. And so it's not me, it's those technicians out in the field who are doing great work and making good decisions and recording that data that gives me the opportunity to base a decision on data instead of a guy sitting in a room making guesses. So my hat goes off to them and their efforts and the systems that we put in place to create that kind of data to make good decisions. So I just wanted to take the time to recognize them.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. So we had 6 bidders come to the mandatory pre-bid meeting, and we have received 5 bids, and Thielen Roofing, our local company, is the low bidder on the project, and we would like to award the contract to them. It was a competitive process. It was interesting to see how far out our work was entertained. So we had people in St. Paul, Waite Park, 2 in Waite Park, Little Falls, and 1 in Minneapolis. He didn't bid. So what I'm hearing is because of this winter, no snow on these roofs, these roofing companies almost worked themselves out of work. And so now they're a little bit hungry. And so that's good for us in the long term. So it will probably turn around. They'll get busy again, but it's a very competitive bid process, and I would just like to ask for a resolution to award the contract to Thielen Heating and Roofing.
So, Mr. Chair, if you could, John, if you could just expand on this a little bit, when you, when we talk about the buildings out there, this is the flat roofs, and this is a rubber roof is what I'm guessing you're talking about.
It is a rubber ballasted roof. It's the membrane that's got rock on top of it.
And it's over the, where the trucks are and the office, it's the whole thing?
It's the whole thing.
Okay.
Yeah. We did consider an adhered roof because they have a longer life. This will be a 20-year warranted roof. You can get an adhered roof that can go 30, 35 years, but the structure out there would not support an adhered roof.
What type of roof is that, John? Explain that to me.
The adhered roof?
You're right.
That's a glued down surface that has no rock ballast on top of it.
Okay.
But to meet the wind uplift requirements, there were trust challenges in that facility. So it just wasn't going to be cost
Structurally.
attractive to do it. I wasn't even going to bring it in front of you. It was just cost prohibitive.
Mr. Chair, one more question. So, John, what's the age of the roof that's there now?
Almost 20 years.
Almost 20
Almost
years.
20. And it was a 15-year warranted roof. So what we're
It's
seeing,
at its lifespan then?
it's at its lifespan. We've actually pushed it a little far, but we've been able to do that. So
When they do a warranty on a roof, is that prorated then? Is that how that works? Or they come, if there's a leak, they come and fix it?
they'll come and fix the leak.
Okay,
We have had that happen several times over the course of the years where we were inside that 15 years, and they come and it's no charge to us. They'll fix the roof.
okay, okay.
Unless, of course, we damaged it or dropped something on it, but yes.
Mr. Chair, if there's no other questions, I would so move the request for board action to award the contract to Thielen Heating and Roofing for the roofing of the County Highway Department building.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion carried. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Looks like next on our agenda, we have County Sheriff.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, I'd like to introduce our Boat and Water Sergeant, Brad Thiesing. He'd like to talk to you about the grants and some of the stuff that's going on in the Boat and Water program this summer. Brad?
Morning.
Good morning, Brad.
Sheriff's Office is tasked with enforcing the rules and laws on our lakes and waterways. With over 400 lakes and waterways within the county, and this being a vacation destination, it is a significant undertaking to go out there and enforce some of these laws. We've got the opportunity to enter into a couple grants with the state to help offset those costs. One grant specific is for general operations of the Boat and Water Department, and the second one is specifically focused towards enforcement out there actually spending time on the water. A little bit about our Boat and Water team. Currently consists of 2 regular full-time deputies. We also have 2 boat and water court security deputies that in the off-season, they spend their time with court security activities and assisting with transports. And in the summer months, we take on seasonal staff. This year, we're taking on 5 seasonal staff, 3 full-time and 2 part-time. Those seasonal staff are oftentimes college students or potentially retired individuals, but those seasonal staff are not licensed deputies. They assist us out there and also help us with our education classes and training opportunities. It helps get that visibility out there into the public. Part of our enforcement and enforcing the rules and laws, big part of that is the education aspect of things. We are fortunate enough to be able to team up with multiple lake associations within the county, in addition to several private businesses that provide us a space to host these classes. We offer classes to youth ages 12 up to 17 to get their youth operator license, so they get the education behind the boat operation so they can go out there and safely do this. Once they've turned 18, they're no longer required to get that education, and oftentimes we find that a lot of adults that are out there on the water don't have that education background. So as we're out there actively enforcing the rules and laws, we come into a lot of the different adults who are maybe violating those rules unintentionally, so we take those oftentimes as education opportunities. With over 400 lakes and waterways, we try to get onto all the different lakes at least 1 or 2 times if they have a public access. But oftentimes our attention is focused on the lakes where we have the significant populations and the boats and the people, and where we get the problems. We do encourage the general public, if there's a problem on their lake and they maybe didn't see us out there yet or haven't had the opportunity to get on that lake, to call us. If we don't know there's a problem, oftentimes it's hard to address it. So we unfortunately don't have enough staff to man the boats 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. But when we do have the staff available, we'll make those arrangements. Maybe we'll show up after the fact, or we can add those areas as a targeted patrol so we can address any situations that may have arisen. Last year alone, we had over 338 proactive contacts with the public where we educated the operators and took enforcement action. The Boat and Water Division is also in charge of heading up our search and recovery operations, accident investigations, and boat fires. We have a dive team that we actively train with. We're very fortunate here in Brainerd that we have the School of Diving, and our volunteer divers are loosely associated with that school. But with that association, they've developed a vast amount of training and experience on their own behalf. So we have this wealth of knowledge that we get to share with our that our volunteer divers bring to our team. And they've assisted us with over 3 operations last year, just with incidents that happened in the course of the general summer. Any questions about some of the different things that we do throughout the summer?
Mr. Chair, is the chair going to take both of these at the same time, or should we just do one at a time?
I think we could take them both at the same time if there's no problem with that.
Which would you prefer for minutes?
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. So
Doesn't
both
matter.
together?
If you don't mind, Brad, I had the opportunity to go out with you last year. I'm expecting probably going to go out there with you again this year.
Looking forward to it.
And go riding around the lakes. It's kind of interesting to go out there. What I think, I would look at, because you're out in a sheriff's boat, we're driving around, you would just want to go up and, if you see somebody out there, just go up and say hi. But I guess we can't go and see anybody unless we see them doing something wrong.
Right, so there's some restrictions that we can do. If the boat's stopped, we can approach them, but if they're actively out there motoring, we can't stop them just to have that general conversation. We actually have to see some kind of violation that would provide us the opportunity to initiate that stop or that contact.
And I know I've already had phone calls from up in my district with people concerned about the one area we have on Cross Lake, so.
Correct. In that specific area, there's a couple different areas. We oftentimes, just by having our presence out there on the water, we try to influence the behavior of the people that are out there enjoying the lakes. And hopefully we can help them be responsible boaters and help reduce the impact that it has to the people and the residents that live on the lake.
Any other comments?
Mr. Chair, just a question to Brad. So you've covered both of the grants already?
Correct.
You feel like, okay. So, Mr. Chair, if there's no other questions, I would so move the county board approve the State of Minnesota Federal Grant Boating Safety Supplemental Patrol Grant Agreement and the State of Minnesota Annual County Boat and Water Safety Grant Agreement. I would move both of those requests for board action.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. Thank you, Brad.
One other thing I would point out is I just noticed that Brad and Andy are using the same barber that I use, so
I hope not, because that's my wife.
Way to go there, Paul.
I'll have a talk with her.
Sounds like you're going to need to work
does a
that
pretty
out
good
later.
Administrator Houle, do you have anything to add to that?
No, just in, what I would say is, in the land of 10,000 lakes, and it feels like half of them are here, we're awfully lucky to have such a robust program, and Brad does a great job leading the program on our behalf. And it is a unique county, because most counties in the state of Minnesota aren't going to have this active of a boat and water patrol. It's obvious here why we do, and they do a great job for us, so.
Okay, thank you very much. I was more of my comment was on barbers.
Yes, well, my wife is my barber as well, so.
Okay, let's go on to county attorney. I don't know if there's anything we have, or do you have anything for us, Don?
Trying to figure out how to turn on my camera. I don't have anything for today, but I certainly can answer any questions anybody has.
Mr. Chair, I do have one quick question for you, Don. I see a lot of paper in the background. Is that your backup plan for security in case we get attacked by the cyber people?
No, this has been my way I do my paperwork for 30 years now, so I don't need that paperwork backup yet.
All right, thank you.
You bet.
Thanks, Don.
Thank you. County administrator.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, yesterday we held a senior management team meeting, and we had a tabletop exercise, which is what Don was referring to. Tabletop exercises are basically ways that you practice for something bad to happen. So yesterday what we practiced was, what if there was a fire that knocked out our central services building? There's a lot of stuff in there, and it starts to have all sorts of implications on you. What really struck me sitting there yesterday was, and it kind of gets to, I think, Commissioner Lubke's point about County Government Week. What struck me was a couple of things. One, how well served we really are. That around that table, there was some brilliant people who were helping to make sure that if we had something bad happen here, they're going to be running towards that problem and trying to help fix that problem. We experienced that not that long ago during COVID, and I remember, I think it was a Sunday morning, when at that time, Board Chair Coring and Vice Chair Barrows, we met over in the Emergency Operations Center because COVID was breaking and we didn't know what the hell was going on with that. And so it felt an awful lot like that yesterday, where you're sitting around and saying, okay, what's the issue? What are the implications? How do we deal with those implications? Who's got to go do what? And you divvy up the work, you divide it up, and that's our plan. Let's go work our plan, and then we're going to meet again in, well, however long to work up the next plan and then go work that plan. And those exercises are really important, because when you are having it happen is not the right time to try to figure out how to manage that. And so I went through tabletop exercises for pandemic flu, and I remember sitting there and thinking, oh my goodness, this is a lot like watching paint dry. Thank God that I went through that, because there was a little experience to draw from. And I think that serves you really well. Deb brought up yesterday that we probably ought to be doing that every year. I think that is probably a good idea. That was my observations. Commissioner Lubke, Commissioner Barrows, you were there yesterday. I thought you may wish to share your own observations as well.
Mr. Chair, I think, Tim, you nailed it. The quality of people in that room and the ability to assess what the action should be, I thought was impressive. So thank you for all who did attend yesterday.
I have nothing else to add.
Okay, Mr. Chair, that is all I have for you today. I'm happy to answer any questions related to anything related to county government.
I have nothing. Anybody else have anything? Okay.
On that.
Thank you.
We'll go on to agenda item 12. I think, Paul, you brought that up.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. And, you know, as I said before, Administrator Houle is leaving, retiring on July the 12th. And we, the county board, decided that we have tremendous bench strength here inside the county. We do have, you know, and obviously I'm very biased towards this county, but I think we've got the best leaders in the whole state here. Great county engineers. You just saw that on with the award that was just presented. And so I think, you know, that was the reason why the county board wanted to just do the applications internally, and we didn't go externally. And so now we have two great candidates that I think the county board has to interview, and we need to make a decision. And I think that making the decision sooner rather than later, because I want them to be able to work with Tim Houle before he's gone from this county. And so I believe that rather than waiting 2 weeks, I think we should, next Monday, if that would that work? Next Monday, we should, and I think, Teresa, that would give you time to post that. Next Monday, we should have a meeting, and we should do the interviews for the two candidates that we have to be the next county administrator.
Do you have a time on that Monday, Paul?
9 o'clock probably makes sense.
Can make it happen.
And I'm sure Commissioner Hogue would be okay with that. I really do. Mr. Chairman, what do you think?
I would like to make sure all members are present, you know, all board members are present for that interview. So I'm not sure if at this time, I don't know if
He'll
Doug
be
is
able to
available.
make it. I know that for a fact. That, and Mr.
You're making
Chair-
that as a motion?
Yeah, well, hold on a second. I would just ask the two candidates if that Monday at 9 o'clock would work okay for them. I see one head shaking, the other head shaking, yes. So I would move that the County Board of Commissioners have a Personnel Committee meeting Monday, and what's the date?
29th.
29th of April, to do interviews for the new county administrator.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Can I just clarify what room you want me to book?
The administration office,
Right.
yeah,
Conference room.
conference room, okay, thank you.
And we'll advertise that as a special meeting because it wasn't on our calendar at
Right.
the beginning of the year, but it's no big deal.
I have no other discussion unless,
I
Mr.
just, I
Chair,
was
unless there's
wondering to
any
make sure that,
discussion on that.
the only thing I was thinking of is will Amy have those questions and stuff available for us for the interview? That was the only thing I just thought about right now.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
I think
Okay.
she'll be okay.
Okay, I just want to make sure of that, because I'd like to have those questions to look
Yeah.
through a little bit before we have the interview.
I will reach out to Commissioner Hoag if there's an issue. I'll reach out to Amy if there's an issue. I'll let you know if there's a wrinkle in your plan.
Right.
And I just want to, Mr. Chair, I want to make sure the public knows that I'm not relying necessarily on, I have my own questions. I don't rely necessarily on staff questions. I mean, I think I can move forward without staff questions. I'm pretty capable, but I have my own questions.
So we had a motion, we had a second, we had all in favor signify by saying aye. Motion carried to have it on next Monday
Yes.
at 9 o'clock at the administration room, unless there is a wrinkle of some type, and you would be reaching out at that time with us, wouldn't you?
Correct.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if there's nothing else, I would make the motion to adjourn.
I would second. Would that be a roll call or?
Let's do a roll call. Let's just, I'll call a roll call for
Why
the
not?
last one.
Why not?
Commissioner Coring,
Aye.
Commissioner Franzine,
Aye.
Commissioner Barrows,
Aye.
Commissioner Lubke.
Aye, motion carried. We are adjourned.